Okay. When it comes to Purim, we have a number of enigmatic practices, and we all know that there's the idea of Ada lo yada on Purim, but Purim is not about having a hangover. If anything, we might say it's about having a hangover, about getting over certain hang-ups we have. There's a wonderful halacha in Shulchan Aruch, and I'm sure that you recall hearing the Rosh Yeshiva speak about it at length. Chayav inish livsume bepuraya ad lo yada ben Arur Haman levarach Mordechai, where the Shulchan Aruch seems to say that someone should imbibe enough alcohol so that he would reach a state sounding very extreme of ben Arur Haman levarach Mordechai, not being able to discern. And if you think that's strange, without getting into the details of halacha l'masa, what that line might mean, the Ramah, which the Mishnah Berurah actually advises us to practice, the Mishnah Berurah writes, "V'chein ro'ui la'asos," writes, "V'yesh omrim de'in tzarech lehishtaker kol kach." One doesn't really have to get quite that drunk of not knowing the difference between Baruch Mordechai and Arur Haman. Rather, Ella yishteh yoser milimudo. He should drink a little bit more than usual. As a result, v'yishan, he should go to sleep. Umitoch sheyashen eno yodea ben Arur Haman lebaruch Mordechai. And he shouldn't be able to recognize the difference while he's asleep. So, a number of years ago, I heard a wonderful shiur by Rav Arnold Adar Bet, one of the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva University, in which Rav Adler asked a very basic question on this Ramah. The Ramah, which seems to be halacha l'maisa for the Ashkenazim, is saying that the whole halacha of drinking on Purim Ada lo yada is in order to reach the level of actually being asleep. Because when you're asleep, you don't know the difference. That's very strange. Why in the world would there be an advantage to me being asleep? I sleep every day and I don't know the difference. What's the advantage of drinking and therefore being asleep? How is that attaining any spiritual level whatsoever on Purim? I thought Purim is about being able to enjoy myself when I'm awake. So he offered this answer. He said that if you look in the Megillah, you might notice that sleep actually is mentioned in the Megillah. The turning point of the Megillah. Some have the practice of actually changing the trup in the Megillah at that point. Say, Ba'laylahu nadida shenasa melech. And we say that on that night, the king Achashverosh wasn't even able to sleep. What does sleep then signify? Sleep means not being in the state that Achashverosh was in. Achashverosh was so perturbed, so disturbed and nervous that he wasn't able to actually fall asleep. And therefore, when we drink on Purim and we actually go to sleep, what we're saying is that the emunah level that we have just attained is tremendous. We don't have a worry in the world. We could sleep like a baby. And therefore, unlike Achashverosh's nervousness, we are being able to rest assured. We have that tremendous emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, it could be one of the goals on Purim in the Simcha is to demonstrate and realize a special, very deep sense of emunah in Hashem. Get over those hang-ups that we have, all of those petty concerns, and realize that with Hashem on our side, as long as we do what we have to, then there's nothing to worry about. We have a few other practices that seem very unusual on their surface that I think really point to the very same theme. If you look in the previous simon, in the Shulchan Aruch itself, it says, Simon Tafrei Sadi Dalad Siv Dalad, Ein medaktikim b'ma'os Purim. We're not particular about who we give money to on Purim. Ela kol mi sheposhet yad lito nos nimlo. Whoever reaches out his hand and requests money from us, we gladly give him. The question is why? That's not halacha all year round. Usually we are particular. Usually we do some sort of an investigation and we give to those who deserve. Why in Purim suddenly not so? In fact, some say that this is the source, one of the many sources, for wearing costumes on Purim. Aside from what we mentioned before, Ada lo yada, one of the reasons is because everyone is able to get a handout on Purim. So why have that person undergo the embarrassment of having to show his face to me? No. We can cover that face, and therefore he doesn't need to worry, and I don't have to worry about him. We're able to just rejoice in the fact that we're one Jewish people, and we're able to give anyone who's in need. I don't have to know what's going on inside his house. I don't have to know what's going inside his mind, exactly how deserving or undeserving that person might be. No, Purim isn't about that. It's not about the concerns. Rather, Purim is about realizing that not everything needs to be taking out that Gemara thumb and saying, oh, I need to know. I need to think it through. I need to make cheshbonos. Sometimes you just need to embrace your fellow Jew and be able to give him. The Bnei Yissaschar has another beautiful interpretation of why we wear costumes that fits also so nicely and neatly into this very important theme. The Bnei Yissaschar says that Hashem acted in a manner that scared us in the Purim story. But we should realize it was really just lifanim. It was really just face deep. Hashem was putting on a veneer in order to challenge us, in order to bring out the best in us and bring us to tshuva. And therefore, he set us up in the Purim story. So too, we wear costumes to show that sometimes the best way to bring out our inner self and to recognize that certain challenges in life are just superficial is by wearing a costume and realizing that really what matters is beyond what's the superficial. Sometimes the best way to get to the true essence, just as we say with the wine, nichnas yayin yatsa sod, with the wine that goes in, the true essence of a person comes out. The inhibitions of that intellectual barrier is broken, ad de lo yada, and therefore we're able to get to the deeper essence of the person, who we truly are, beyond our hang-ups. We're able to embrace those Jews without having that barrier of, I'm annoyed by something about him. And finally, let's look at one other practice of Purim that I think really gets to the heart of the matter, of our emunah in Hashem, beyond the hang-ups of our involvement in the current world. Rav Yonason Sachs, Shlita of Passaic, New Jersey, and of Landers. So when I was in his shul, he, on numerous occasions, would mention something which I think he quoted from Rav Asher Weiss. We know that on Purim, we have an interesting practice in Kriyas Megillah. And rather than just reading the scroll the same way as we do from the Torah scroll, we first unfurl the entire Megillah in front of us. It looks kind of messy. It wouldn't be something we normally would do. Why is that the minhag? So we say it's because it's an igeres, a letter. I don't know about you, and maybe it's hard for us to think about this in today's electronic era, but even in the days when we used to get good old letters on paper, if I got a 10-page letter, I would not scatter the pages all over my table in order to read it. Why? Just because this is an igeres, can I not just read it normally the way all of us at our seats with Megillahs do? What's special about the unfurling of the Megillah? He suggested as follows, that the Megillah story, if we think of it one frame at a time, one column at a time, the story is so frightening at the beginning. We read portions of it in the Eichatun even. Whereas later in the story, everything is flipped on its head, v'nahafochu, and everything turns out for the best. At the end of the story, with historical hindsight, so then we're able to see that, wow, everything that happened earlier in the Megillah not only was not as scary as it first seemed, but actually was positive. Hashem knew the whole time. He had everything all planned out, and particularly all of the things that were supposed to be so dangerous to us turned out to be our very salvation. You know, when we're living life, so we get news flashes. We'll read that day's headline, we'll hear the news, we'll get an important message, and we'll get sometimes very frightened. How can it be? How are we going to get through this? What's going to be for tomorrow? And is Hashem really orchestrating this? Where is Hashem? Sometimes we might even come to ask. In the Purim story, that's also what was going on. Because when we live our lives, we look at it one column at a time. One news bite at a time. Maybe the message of Purim is ad de lo yada. You don't have to necessarily look at every individual piece of information and start making cheshbonot and discerning, is this good for the Jews or bad for the Jews? Because you know what? We don't even know. Hashem knows. We don't. He sees the big picture. He has the historical overview. And he can appreciate that. Only after the fact are we able to appreciate the same. And therefore, when we unfurl the entire Megillah in front of us, what are we really accomplishing? We're really saying that the only thing that is a real perspective on history is the type of overview that Hashem, who's taking care of us, really has. We shouldn't get overly concerned and hung up with what was presenting itself to us at any given moment, because Gamzu Latova, at the end, in Hashem's game plan, it'll all work out well. Just as we started out speaking about the ability to go to sleep, we can rest ourselves much more comfortably assured, knowing Hinei lo yanum v'lo yishan, Shomer Yisrael. Hashem's always watching us. Hashem's controlling everything that's happening. And therefore, even if the current events scare us, and we say, I don't know any way out of this, you're right. Now you just reached a new level, because you don't know. Sometimes the biggest danger is when we think we have all the answers. We try to figure everything out, and we say, wow, I really know what to do in this circumstance. Sometimes a humble approach that's very, very, very healthy is to say, I really don't know, but I can rest assured that someone does know, is taking care of us. The Ramah has one more line when he finishes talking about the different practices of drinking on Purim, and he says, "Ve'achar hamarbeh ve'achar hamam'it." Different people have different practices. Some will be maximalists, and some will be minimalists when it comes to the drinking. Uvilvad sheyechaven libo l'shamayim. But the key is that ultimately we need the approach to be one, which is l'shem shamayim. Perhaps we can take this and make a slight play on the words and say that aside from the fact that everything we do is Simchas Purim, that it should all be focused on doing it for the right reasons, with our devotion to Hashem in mind. Everything should be a safe activity, and everything should be a spiritually oriented and directed activity. But maybe we could say tarte mashma, that the point of all these activities on Purim, be it the drinking, the dispersing of funds indiscriminately, the dressing up, the happiness of the day, from the reading of the Megillah to the giving out of packages to build up reyos among Am Yisrael, all of it is with the eye, sheyechaven l'shem shamayim, to remind us that what's really in control is Hashem Avinu Shabashamayim. And with that, hopefully we'll all enjoy a very joyous and meaningful Purim and Adar.